So last Sunday, we had our first news and analysis episode for the month of August, where we looked at what was changing in the American parks and what this meant for the future of Disneyland and the Disney World resorts. And then late on Thursday, I did something a little bit different. I posted our main episode for the week, which looked at changes in the larger Disney organization with a focus on upcoming theatrical films, Disney Plus, and the Disney-owned TV networks such as ESPN and ABC. I put this episode up early because it drew on the Disney earnings call from the previous day, Wednesday. Basically, I wanted to make that episode as relevant as possible, especially for listeners most interested in the present state and future of the Disney company. But that episode, which is listed as the Disney Update for August 2023, Part 2, was our main episode for the week. It runs about 50 minutes and explores many areas of the Disney company. You can find it in your feed right behind this episode. But today, for our Sunday slot, I have a shorter episode to fill out our week. If you're on Bandcamp, you already know that for the past year, we've been building a topical audio guide to Walt Disney World, which, when it's all finished, will take you through the resort area by area. There are presently a dozen audio chapters up there in that Bandcamp album right now, from some specific tips to improve your vacation, to thoughts about how to maximize your hotel dollars, to dining guides for each park and resort area. Today, we're going to add to the dining guide by taking a look at the best restaurants in Disney Springs. There are over 50 restaurants in Disney Springs, which range from excellent down to just okay. In all of our dining guides, we break down the options into price categories, from inexpensive to moderate to expensive. We focus only on the best experiences in each price category. It's just the picks, not the pans. So here we'll focus on the top 10% of dining options at Disney Springs. My goal here is to improve your time at the resort so that each restaurant you pick will be a fabulous experience. Most sections in our audio guide are 12 to 30 minutes, perfect for a short drive to work or a fast walk around the neighborhood. They're designed to help you pick the best options for your next vacation to the Florida resort. They are also designed to simply let you dream about your next vacation there. So, if you're ready, let's jump in and explore the best options at Disney Springs. Disney Springs is the centerpiece shopping, dining, and entertainment district at the Florida resort. Longtime visitors remember when this same area, back in the mid-1970s, was a collection of exotic shops called the Lake Buena Vista Shopping Village. A decade later, the shopping village added a nightclub quarter called Pleasure Island. A decade after that, the shopping area was reimagined as Downtown Disney, which included more entertainment options such as the AMC Theaters, Cirque du Soleil, and Disney Quest. And 2 decades after that, in 2013, the lakeside property was reimagined yet again as Disney Springs, a center focused on food and drink and boutique-style shopping with an emphasis on dining. Since it opened, Disney Springs has added a range of new restaurants. It now has more high-quality restaurants than any other resort area, including those hotels on the monorail loop. Disney Springs long ago replaced Epcot as the culinary center of the resort. Beyond this, menu pricing overall is significantly lower at Disney Springs restaurants than at restaurants elsewhere on property. There are 2 pricing pressures here. The first, Disney Springs, is arranged for locals and tourists, so its pricing structure needs to compete with other night spots in the Orlando area. And second, When guests are in a park or at their hotel, they're usually going to stay there regardless of menu pricing. It's far easier for guests to come and go at Disney Springs as it's not a full-day destination. People usually come here for a few hours and then move on to other experiences. But for guests, that's also a tremendous advantage, as excellent meals are simply less expensive here than they are elsewhere on property. Disney buses regularly run from Disney hotels to Disney Springs, and if you're staying at Port Orleans, Old Key West, or Saratoga Springs, you're a quick boat ride away. In these dining guides, I've broken down the restaurants into 3 categories: inexpensive, moderate, and expensive. But at Disney Springs, for the most part, the restaurants break down into inexpensive and moderate options. Also, as there are over 50 restaurants here, I'm highlighting only the best and most unique offerings in each category. The first up is the inexpensive category, which are typically counter-service restaurants. In our inexpensive category, we have the Polite Pig, which is by far the best barbecue restaurant on Disney property. A counter-service option so good it was recognized by the Michelin Guide. The Michelin Guide offers 3 categories of distinction: the stars, which are the highest form of distinction, the Bib Gourmand, which measures quality of food at value prices, and the Michelin Plate. This is the newest and also lowest level of distinction, where the inspectors have discovered quality food. So far, Disney World has no restaurants with a Michelin star or a bib, but it does have a few with a Michelin Plate. Most of these are upper-end signature restaurants such as Citricos and the California Grill. It also has one inexpensive restaurant that recently made the cut at Disney Springs, which is the Polite Pig. The Polite Pig is somewhere between a counter service and table service restaurant. You order at the counter, but your food and drinks are brought by a server. Servers also bring condiments and will clear your table when you're done. The standout item on the menu is the brisket meatballs with grits, a sweet barbecue sauce, and onion straws. The meatballs are made from burnt ends, ground up, and formed into 3 golf ball-sized offerings. The dish is presented and priced as an appetizer, but it's nearly big enough to be an entree. Though it's served in a paper basket, the flavor combinations here are as compelling as those you would find at much more expensive restaurants on property. I would avoid the sandwiches, as their bread has a dryness to it that doesn't add to the texture of the meats, but the meats themselves are very good. Here you'll want to try the ribs or the pulled pork or the brisket. If you want fried chicken, which they offer, you're far better off at Homecoming, a restaurant just down the way, which we'll talk about later in this section. The brisket is better than the pulled pork. If you want sauce, you'll need to add it yourself from their sauce station. The brisket pairs perfectly with their porter sauce, which is a sauce mixed with black pepper and honey and finally finished with a beer porter reduction. Each of these plates comes with a side of your choosing. I would recommend either the chipotle corn or the grilled Brussels sprouts, which are touched with a honey caramel glaze. Like a few other restaurants at Disney Springs, the Polite Pig has a signature alcohol, which is bourbon. They offer over 100 bourbons, including some finely aged options from small batch distilleries. But unlike signature alcohol options at other restaurants, bourbon here has simply never taken off in the same way that signature liquors have taken off at other on-property restaurants. At least for me, a beer goes better with barbecue than sipping bourbon. If you're headed to the Pig for lunch, this is my quick and direct recommendation. Order the brisket meatballs, which is a very large appetizer along with a side. Unless you're in training for a marathon, this will be more than enough for lunch. It's also one of the best and least expensive meals anywhere at Disney Springs. Next up is our moderate category, which is the only other category we'll explore at Disney Springs. For table service dining, restaurants at Disney Springs are typically priced 25 to 30% less than similar restaurants in the parks or at the resort hotels. Simply, the pricing at table service restaurants at Disney Springs needs to remain competitive with other options in the Orlando area. Because of this, the dining options in the moderate category here represent good value compared to similar restaurants on Disney property. The moderate meals here would mostly be priced as expensive options if the restaurant were in a Disney park or at a Disney resort hotel. So let's now start in on restaurants that, if we were to use our usual pricing rubric, would largely be categorized as expensive table service restaurants, but here are priced as moderates. Here is the best of what Disney Springs has to offer. I'll start with a restaurant that typically doesn't make these best of lists, though I think it should. Haleo at Disney Springs is part of a small boutique chain of restaurants which was started in 1993 in Washington, D.C. by chef Jose Andres to focus on regional Spanish cuisine, both with food and drink. Along with the establishment at Disney Springs, Jose Andres has restaurants in Chicago and Las Vegas. Though the restaurant does have large plates, the focus here is on shareable tapas, which, like a family-style meal, can easily be divided among 2 or 4 people. For those of you familiar with the Disney Resort, you might notice that this is similar to the menu at Toledo over at Coronado Springs. Both of these restaurants are very good. In terms of overall environment, Toledo wins hands down, but in terms of food, Haleo is slightly better. As for our pricing schedule, it's difficult to place Haleo into either the moderate or the expensive category, as it doesn't focus on individual dinners, but rather on tapas plates. Still, in terms of pricing, I'd place Haleo at the upper end of the moderate scale, though if you order the Haleo experience, you'll definitely be inside of the expensive range. But generally, with typical orders in terms of food, you should find that 2 or 3 tapas plates in terms of an entree equivalent hits the moderate range. Let's start with the drinks. The drink here most associated with Spain is sangria. Similar to the Three Bridges Bar, also over at Coronado Springs, Haleo offers 4 varieties of sangria, though I suspect only one, the red sangria or the sangria rojo, might actually qualify as a true sangria, as the others are enhanced with gin, which elevates them somewhere between a wine drink and a cocktail. The gin-enhanced sangrias all have a fairly strong flavor of juniper berries. Particularly for a Spanish tapas bar, I prefer the red sangria, which is served on tap. I'm typically skeptical of restaurants with particularly large menus, which to me suggests that the restaurant doesn't have a strong focus. Including the daily specials, Haleo has over 60 dishes. Since the restaurant opened in 2019, I've tried about half of them. There are a handful that I wouldn't order again, but not because they weren't enjoyable, but rather because Haleo has stronger options on the menu. That is, Haleo is one of the few restaurants that produces a large number of high-quality dishes. There's a chef's menu called the Haleo Experience, which offers samplings of key dishes, but at least in my experience, it includes far more food than most anyone can eat. Generally, for 2 people, I would suggest a salad and 2 or maybe 3 tapas plates to share. If I'm there by myself, a salad and a single tapas plate or 2 tapas plates without a salad is more than enough for me. My one caution for this restaurant is over-ordering. You can easily order 2 or 3 tapas plates, and then if your table is still hungry, you can order more. I'd recommend starting with either a salad or the pan de cristal con tomate, which is a crispy Spanish bread with tomatoes, olive oil, and salt. Toledo also offers a version of this dish, though it's better here at Jaleo. The best salad is the fennel salad with sliced apples, manchego cheese, and walnuts. From there, if you're dining as a couple, start with 2 tapas, 3 at most. Again, you can order more as you go. Among the best options at Jaleo are croquetas de pollo, which are chicken fritters, the sautéed shrimp served with sliced garlic and spiced with a dried Italian pepper, the bikini de jamon con queso manchego. This is likely the best grilled cheese you'll ever have, with serrano, manchego, and sweet ham. And if you ask, they will make it without the ham. Of the cured meats, I'd lean toward the Paleta Iberica, which is shoulder ham cured for 3 years from the free-range Iberico pigs of Spain. For this dish, a waiter will carve the meat in paper-thin strips similar to the texture of Italian prosciutto at your table. One of the iconic offerings is the paella, which is served by the plate. On weekdays, Jaleo only serves paella at dinner, but on weekends, they serve it at lunch and dinner. A new pan of paella is made every 45 minutes, so you might ask your server when the next paella will be served. When the paella is finished, the cook will rhythmically ring a bell until all of the waitstaff sing out paella. Then dishes will come out to all of the tables who have ordered it. The paella selections change daily. The last time I was there, the paella featured chicken, rabbit, green beans, and artichokes, though they often serve more traditional paellas that feature pork, chicken, and shrimp. More so than other offerings here, paella is a dish that presents the flavors of the Mediterranean regions of Spain. I'd easily slot this as one of the best, if not the best, tapas plates to order individually or for the table. Beyond this, there are only a handful of items that I wouldn't order again, such as the Spanish omelet with potato and onion and the chorizo with mashed potatoes. But even then, these dishes were generally satisfying, only that there were far more flavorful items on the menu. Jaleo is a restaurant where you should trust your server. The menu contains core tapas and large plates, as well as a handful of specials. The servers here typically have worked at the restaurant for years and have a deep understanding of the menu and can guide you toward dishes that you'll enjoy. Also, the menu at Jaleo is centered on shareable plates, so it's a good restaurant to visit with friends you know well, maybe less so for a business dinner with people you're meeting for the first time. Lastly, Jaleo is a restaurant where you can often find same-day reservations and walk-up availability. If Jaleo is left off of many best-of lists, our next selection, Chef Art Smith's Homecoming, is on nearly all of them. In terms of our pricing scale, Homecoming falls between an inexpensive and a moderate restaurant, with most dishes landing within the lower end of the moderate range. As opposed to many table service options at Disney Springs, Homecoming is decidedly casual, with both indoor and outdoor tables as well as multiple seats along the bar. With a focus on fried chicken, the culinary theme of Homecoming is Southern food with an eye toward Florida traditions. The 2 other restaurants on property that focus on Florida cuisine are Olivia's Cafe over at the Old Key West Resort and the Grand Floridian Cafe at the Grand Floridian. But Homecoming easily has both beat in terms of chicken. The restaurant itself is decorated with banners and photos that represent the state's mid-century identity. In this way, Homecoming celebrates the identity of Central Florida in the decades before Disney arrived. Homecoming opened in 2017, and in its early years, it experimented with a number of Southern dishes, including fried okra, Florida grouper, various sandwiches, and breaded short ribs. But many of these options have fallen away from their menu. Though the restaurant still offers a few dishes outside of fried chicken is the center of the menu now. It is easily the best fried chicken on Disney property. The chicken is bathed in a buttermilk brine for 24 hours and then battered with spices and flour and fried, leaving the meat moist and flavorful. Chicken is served many ways. It's offered as a plate served with mashed potatoes, which are excellent, and a biscuit, but be warned, this plate is enormous. I've never finished all of the food. I've repeatedly taken home leftovers. Many people, I think, could easily split the fried chicken plate along with an appetizer or two for a satisfying dinner. Beyond the plate, you can order fried chicken with house-made donuts, which are powdered with sugar and come with a side of syrup. You can order fried chicken thighs on biscuits. The biscuits by themselves are a little bit dry, but here they are perfect, topped with a spiced honey. The biscuits are cheesy and warm. Compared to chicken breast, thighs are a fattier cut of meat, which gives them a more intense and darker flavor, which pairs well with the biscuit and honey. You can order fried chicken on a salad, which includes a generous portion of chicken over greens. Finally, you can order fried chicken as a sandwich. This is my least favorite option on the list, but if you're getting lunch, a sandwich or a salad may be the way to go, as all of the other options are heavy meals that feel far more like dinner. The sandwich comes with homemade chips, but you should know that you can swap out the chips for any side on the menu. At the top of my list here would be the cheese grits, followed by the mashed potatoes. In terms of drinks, back when Homecoming opened, its advertised emphasis was more on craft cocktails. But as the restaurant developed, the drink most associated with Homecoming came to be moonshine, or shine as it's called here. The shine drinks are mostly variations on Southern standards. There's a strawberry lemonade with shine, a sweet tea with shine, a rum runner with shine. You can order drinks at the table or at the walk-up bar. If you're at the bar, you can ask for samples before committing to a flavor. The drinks come in either 16-ounce glasses or 22-ounce refillable squeeze bottles. The squeeze bottles can be refilled at a significant discount, not only on your first visit, but any time you venture over to Homecoming. Lastly, in terms of dessert, they offer a poppy seed cake infused with a lemon-flavored moonshine syrup. Here, too, you need to be over 21 years old to try the cake. Again, most of the meals here are large. Most couples, I think, will find that the chicken plate, along with an extra side and some cake, is more than enough for two people. The next two restaurants I will handle as a pair, the Boathouse and Morimoto Asia. I'll be upfront here. Both took a while to grow on me. For me, the hurdle was that unlike most restaurants on the list, the Boathouse and Morimoto Asia are relatively unthemed. Both restaurants were part of a 2015 expansion at Disney Springs, specifically focused on upscale urban cuisine. The Boathouse is a dockside restaurant and bar with nautical touches, similar to dockside restaurants that you would find over in Tampa or Cocoa Beach. The menu is similar to what you'd find there as well. Likewise, Morimoto Asia has an urban design similar to downtown restaurants in New York or San Francisco, with high ceilings, black walls, and dramatic chandeliers whose beads fall in long lit lines down to the floor. In short, neither the ambiance of the Boathouse nor Morimoto Asia feels like a Disney restaurant, specifically a restaurant that lifts me up out of my daily life and places me somewhere new. Instead, the ambiance of both restaurants reminds me of pleasant dining options back home. But beyond the minimal theming, there are many reasons to recommend both restaurants. I'll start with the Boathouse. With the exception of Victoria and Albert's over at the Grand Floridian, the Boathouse consistently has the best service on property. The restaurant is owned and managed by an outside company, which clearly has placed a premium on how the waitstaff cares for guests. Glasses are continually refilled, silverware, if necessary, is replaced between courses, guests are checked many times during each meal. Second, though the Boathouse is appointed as a formal restaurant with tablecloths and cloth napkins, in terms of pricing, the menu is highly scalable. There are a few entrees that even dip down into our inexpensive range, including the filet mignon sliders, and a few that rise to the other end, including the porterhouse. But the majority of menu options rest comfortably in the modest category. The restaurant radiates a 1980s vibe, with a near-preppy focus on boating culture and country club decorum. The cast from any John Hughes movie, such as 16 Candles or Ferris Bueller's Day Off, would feel right at home here. The background music is largely early 80s new wave, such as Phil Collins' Go West, Flock of Seagulls, basically any band from that era who relied heavily on the Yamaha DX7. On weekends, though, pianists perform in the main room, Friday and Saturday nights, and Saturday and Sunday during brunch, where their musical selections might be best described as Billy Joel and Chicago mixed with a few Disney standards. Tables in the main room, near the pianos, can be hard to come by when they're performing. You'll need to request this location when you arrive. In terms of menu options, my one piece of advice here is that the seafood and shellfish are stronger choices than the steaks. At the top of my list is the seared tuna. This is a sushi-grade tuna crusted with coriander seeds and then lightly seared. It's served with shishito peppers in a wide bowl with a soy lime vinaigrette and a spicy wasabi mayonnaise. It is by far the best dish on the menu. It pairs well with the mac and cheese as a side. You can request a half order of the mac for roughly half the price. Beyond the tuna, the shrimp boil with andouille sausage, potatoes, and corn on the cob is a strong option as well. The sausage has more the texture of tasso, but it works well with the shrimp. In terms of lighter lunch items, the mahi tuna and filet mignon sliders are both very good and well priced. Lastly, the mac and cheese with andouille and shrimp is the second most popular dish on the menu, right behind the seared tuna. It's a heavy item, so you'll likely not want to hit up Tower of Terror right after lunch. Lastly, in terms of appetizer, go for the lobster bisque. There are a surprising number of Disney World restaurants that serve lobster bisque, but the Boathouse has one of the two best bisques on property. Likewise, the strength areas of Morimoto Asia are centered on food rather than on themed ambiance. Morimoto Asia is the creation of celebrity chef Masaharu Morimoto, who first rose to fame with the Japanese television show Iron Chef and later became a star on Iron Chef America. From there, he published cookbooks and opened a line of Asian-themed restaurants across the globe, including Morimoto Asia at Disney Springs. Many dishes here are good, from the orange chicken to the kung pao chicken to the marinated Peking duck, but the dish to order is the Korean buribop. This dish is prepared and cooked tableside. The center of the dish features multiple pieces of sushi-grade yellowtail tuna imported from Japan, which is seasoned with ginger and peppercorns. A server will present you with a clay bowl heated to roughly 500 degrees and then place the tuna in the bowl where it's seared on one side. The dish also includes carrots, daikon radishes, and rice, which is also lightly seared by the hot clay. It is finished off with an egg yolk and served with a sesame and garlic infused soy sauce. The server will mix the elements together, finally leaving the tuna, now seared on one side, atop the rice and vegetables. Unlike other restaurants that we've pointed to at the resort, such as Cinderella's Royal Table, where the atmosphere is far more inviting than the food, the opposite is true at Morimoto Asia. For a modestly priced restaurant, the food is exceptional and the service is excellent, even if the atmosphere is decidedly urban. The Buribop remains one of my favorite and most unique dishes on property. Last on the list is Raglan Road, an Irish pub that draws on the early traditions of World Showcase, combining excellent food with entertainment. Raglan Road is a Victoria-era Dublin-themed pub whose bars and wall dressings, some of which are a century old, were shipped from Ireland to Orlando. The restaurant is primarily known for its braised beef, which is served either on a sandwich or as a plate with a red wine reduction sauce and mashed potatoes. The two other items on the menu worth trying are the chicken pot pie with mushrooms and leeks and shepherd's pie with braised beef and lamb. The dining room is paneled with dark wood and stained glass, with most of the tables arranged around an elevated stage. Beyond the food, the 30-minute stage show is what distinguishes Raglan Road as one of the best experiences at Disney Springs. The evening show features an Irish band and step dancers. The bands hailing from Ireland change throughout the year, but a typical band might include a guitarist, a fiddle player, and a flautist, who muscle out Irish tunes as 6 dancers perform on stage. Think Riverdance, with some fabulous solo dancers clicking their trained heels across the stage. In each show, the band brings up kids to coach them through a few steps. But the combination of Irish music and dancers, most of whom came to Florida directly from Ireland, along with the tawny hues of a lively pub, easily arrange Raglan Road as a spiritual descendant of World Showcase. In many ways, I think Raglan Road is a more successful version of a World Showcase restaurant than most restaurants actually in World Showcase. The food at Raglan is better and less expensive than offerings at Rose and Crown, which is the featured pub in the UK section of World Showcase. The decor is more detailed, with most of the bar being shipped in from Ireland, and the entertainment surpasses any of the Epcot dinner shows that are either presently or were once offered there, such as the Oktoberfest offerings in the Germany Pavilion. I've eaten at Raglan Road many times. For a while, it was my go-to restaurant at Disney Springs. I've never had a bad meal here. More importantly, the Irish dancers, especially when the full group performs on weekends, are athletic, musical, and mesmerizing. Though the bands rotate throughout the year, I have never seen a bad act. At the end of each of these audio chapters on dining, I typically pick one restaurant as a top recommendation. Basically, if I only had time for just one meal at Disney Springs, what would it be? But there are so many restaurants at Disney Springs that for this segment, I'm going to pick 2. First would be Homecoming, a relatively casual restaurant whose fried chicken plate is phenomenal. And second would be Raglan Road. I've easily dined at Raglan Road more than at any other restaurant at Disney Springs. The menu selections here are strong, maybe not as strong as Homecoming, but the evening entertainment and themed atmosphere move it up into the highly recommended list. Reservations are easier to find for Raglan Road than they are for Homecoming, but those are the 2 that I would place into the highly recommended list if you only have limited time at the Springs. So, before you move on to something else, make yourself some notes of what you'd like to try next time you're at Disney Springs. Was it the paella at Haleo, or the brisket meatballs at Polite Pig, or the Korean buribop at Morimoto Asia, or the fabulous fried chicken at Homecoming? Or are you more interested in the Irish fare and entertainment at Raglan Road? Most smartphones have an app where you can keep notes, so before you forget the restaurants and menu items that we have explored in this episode, leave some notes for yourself on your smartphone as to what most appeals to you. You'll likely have that same smartphone and those same notes with you next time you're at Disney Springs, or the next time you're simply planning out a future trip. And those notes that you take right now will help guide you to some excellent meals. I'll be back next week with a new episode, but remember, in your feed just behind this episode are not one, but 2 episodes that explore the current state of the Disney Company and chart out what current changes mean for the future of Disney films, parks, and other experiences. Lastly, we're an ad-free, listener-supported podcast. We do just 2 things: deep dives on stories related to the history of the Disney studio and the parks, and news and analysis of current events as they relate to the Disney Company. We are funded entirely by listener contributions. On Bandcamp, you'll find over 200 episodes not available on iTunes, including that Bandcamp album called The DHI Guide to Walt Disney World that contains many audio chapters, just like our episode today, designed to improve your next vacation to the Florida resort. But the best reason to join us over on Bandcamp is to support the work we do here and to make sure that this podcast continues to exist. You can become a monthly subscriber at dhipodcast.bandcamp.com. I'll also leave a link down in the show notes. Until then, this is Todd James Pierce.